one is doing when one is taking in the Heilstrom, one is acting like a radio receiver. You are switching your dial to that God frequency, right? You're tuning your dial to the frequency of God, and you're opening yourself like an antenna, and you are allowing the Heilstrom, which is more intelligent than we are. God is the ultimate in intelligence. So God knows where we need help and healing. God knows when we need what to be healed.
Welcome back to the Awakened Minds podcast. Today, I welcome you, Dr. April James. Today, she's going to be joining us to share with us her teachings on the Bruno Groening Circle of Friends. And today, I would like April, if you don't mind, to just introduce yourself to our guests.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. April Lynn James. I'm known as the PhD Diva because I'm a classically trained soprano with a PhD from Harvard. And one of the things that I've accomplished is having my book, The Tenth Muse, How Maria Antonia Advanced the Pastoral Opera, become a #1 bestseller on Amazon. That just pleased me so much.
Congratulations on that. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. A book on an 18th century woman who was a composer, poet, singer. So she was a soprano like I am. And a patron of the arts. And she was so inspiring that the Queen of France was named after her.
Right.
And now the Queen of France you've probably heard of. It was her cousin, Marie Antoinette.
Ah, there you go. And what got you into the book? Was that something that you knew you were going to do?
Well, I'm a singer. And I'd like to say that I've been singing since I came out of the womb, really, because I don't remember a time when I wasn't singing. And I've always been interested in music. And, I grew up singing, in the church choir, music by Bach, Handel, Mozart, Brahms. And then as an adult, I got into Vivaldi and Baroque music more. And I noticed that all the music that I was learning was written by men. And when I went back to school, so my first degrees in school were in communications and media studies. And I worked in that field for a while. And then I went back to school to study music because I just couldn't stand working in television or in publishing. But because music was my first love. And is when I went back to school to study music, and I looked in these textbooks and I'm going, okay, so there was Hildegard von Bingen, that's the 12th century. And then there's Clara Schumann, the 19th century. I'm like, what? Women did nothing between Hildegard and Clara?
Right.
Wow. Like this can't be. And so it became my mission to research this stuff and find out who was there, who made music. And I focused on music for voice because I'm a singer and I wanted to be able to perform some of this music eventually. And how I came to Maria Antonia was that was really guided. It was just guided. I was taking a course called Manuscript Sources at Harvard, where the professor pulled a whole bunch of things out of the music library, from the music library shelves, and they were there on the table the first day of class. And we were all to look through them, and I looked at them, I looked at different things, and I saw there were 2 acts from a 3-act opera, and the name on it was Maria Antonia. I'm like, oh. And so I said, well, is anyone working on her? And he said, no. I said, oh, well, I am now. And that's how I came up with my dissertation topic. And it's Maria Antonia. And it turned out that those were the two acts 2 and 3, I think it was, to her first opera, Il Trionfo della Fedeltà, the triumph of fidelity.
Incredible. I was actually listening to a little bit of opera before you coming on here today, because I just wanted to get a vibe of what it was like. Because honestly, I haven't really looked into opera, probably being that I'm a younger generation. But what I did see was quite beautiful. And it's very angelic, just the power and the intent behind the vocals when you're singing opera like that. It just pulled on my heartstrings. I just felt like I wanted to cry. I wanted to feel happy. There was just so many emotions in it. So yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you. Well, it can be, that's the thing about music, that it is this direct connection to the divine. It comes from God. Music, good music, divine music comes from God.
Yeah.
And this is, so we were having just a pre-interview discussion, about opera, and my feelings about opera and the classical music world and the music world is that, unfortunately, what I found when I was actively pursuing a career in that field is that the people in it weren't really aware of the divine nature of music, and they made it about something else, about ego, about modern
Prestige.
ideas of sexuality, this, that, and the other thing. Like, they made it about everything except the music and the divine connection behind it. And now, what I can say about my earlier career in opera is that I stopped trying to be an opera singer back in like 2012 because things were not working out. I was living at home with my mother at the time. She'd gone through multiple health crises, and I was helping her through those. It was a time in my life I call the decade of awfulness.
Oh.
Between Harvard and 2012, I called it the decade of awfulness because nothing was happening the way I had envisioned. And because of all the stress and everything, I couldn't really sing properly. So the music that I wanted to be part of, I couldn't really do it. So I was like, okay, we'll just stop for a little while. And actually, by my last concert was in May of 2012 for my organization, the Maria Antonia Project. I started my own opera company to get operas composed by women out there.
Wow.
And but my last concert for that was May 2012. I put it on hiatus and just said, okay, I don't know what's going on, but I can't do this right now. And it was shortly after that, though, that I came to Bruno Groening's teaching, and my life turned around and my voice turned around. And now here we are in 2023, and I can sing the music finally that I've wanted to be able to sing. I can sing it. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Wow. Yeah.
So we've had a guest before, Scott. He's come on the podcast, and he was also one of the family members of the Bruno Groening Circle of Friends. And we did learn a little bit on camera and also off camera. And Jimmy and myself, we practiced for quite some time, and I witnessed quite a few miracles happen myself with it. But there was a period where we sort of dropped off with it because we got busy, life got in the way. But I would love to just talk to you about that again, maybe bring it back into my life and just see it work again for myself. And even the viewers watching, I really do urge you to try it because it's quite remarkable. But first, April, let me know how you got into it. How did you find Bruno Groening's healing?
Yeah, well, I'm not like a founding member of anything, and neither is Scott. We are both friends in the Bruno Groening Circle of Friends. I came to it in 2012, like I had said, and I had been through a lot of different spiritual teachings right over the years. I grew up Episcopal, so I'm Episcopalian, so I still have fond feelings for the Anglican church services, because of all the music. I was lucky that my parents allowed me to be in the church choir rather than go to Sunday school when I was a kid, because they met at the same time. So I could either be in the choir or go to Sunday school. And I chose choir. My parents let me, and I'm very happy about that.
Lucky you. I had to go to Sunday school.
Oh, well, I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's just that I got more from being in the choir than I would have gotten going through Sunday school. I realized that as an adult, and I'm glad I was able to experience that. but when I got to be 18, the services weren't doing it for me anymore. I mean, the music always did it for me, but the services, I was like, why? Because I wasn't feeling the divine connection really outside of music. So that's when I started searching actively and came across New Age stuff, feminist spirituality, so goddess spirituality, Wicca, this kind of stuff. Um, and 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 those were fine for a little while. And I've always done yoga, by the way, and I've always, like, since I was a kid, I learned yoga watching. There used to be a program on PBS, Lilius Yoga and You. So I grew up with watching that program, like a half-hour show. Lilius Folan, she would do yoga, and so I first learned yoga from her, and then later on took yoga classes at IYI, Integral Yoga Institute in New York. So I've always had this God connection, and I've always spoken to God, even if I couldn't necessarily find God in church. And goddess spirituality was one of those things where I was like, well, I want to find a God that looks like me, right? Okay. And that all worked for a while, but I got to the point, and this was, I'm gonna fast forward to that decade of awfulness. I found the teachings of Louise Hay. I found Louise Hay's work to be very important and very inspiring and quite powerful. I experienced healing through affirmations, using affirmations. And I also was interested in angels. And so I'm going to go to 2011. 2011, my mother's health, we'd been through a lot of health crises with her, and also some family crises, because I have a brother, and he's older, but he was also, there was some really bad stuff just happening at a distance too, between himself and mom and then me, and it was just a nasty situation. So in 2011, a friend of mine came to me. She gave me a flyer, and it was a flyer for the Bruno Groening Circle of Friends. And on it is a grayish blue flyer with a picture of Bruno Groening on it. And she said, I'm giving this to you for your mother. Maybe it'll help your mother. And I took one look at the flyer and I said, huh?
Is that the same book you sent to me, the little blue book?
So it's not the same book. No, but it's not the same book. It's I'm trying to see if I have I don't have one of those flyers right here with me, but in any case, it has a different picture of Bruno Groening on it than what I sent you. What I sent you was an introduction booklet, and so that's different. So, but a flyer, the flyer had this picture on it, and it said "Help and Healing on the Spiritual Path Through the Teaching of Bruno Groening." And I took one look at the flyer and I said, my mother's not going to be interested in this, but I might be someday. And I put it aside. I kept it on my computer table. Okay, a year later, my brother was getting ready to move back into the house with us. He'd been living in another state. I'm from New York. I was just say I'm from New York City. So he's getting ready to move back to New York City and move in with us. And I was like, oh no, I can't do that. That's not going to work for me. And so it was, middle of July, 2012. And my friend had just come back from a hiking week in Filzmoos. In the Circle of Friends, they organize hiking weeks in the Austrian Alps every summer. Wow. And the Austrian Alps are a very powerful place. It's a powerful place in Europe, just like the Himalayas are a powerful place in Nepal and India and stuff. Wow. So the Austrian Alps are a power place in Europe. And we're talking on the phone. She's like, oh, it was great, and so many people experience healings, and I'm hearing this and I'm like, well, and I said to her, well, if it helps so many people, maybe I have to check this out too. And she said, great, there's an introduction next week.
Really?
Okay. So I was like, right. So it was a Tuesday evening is the introduction. So I'm like, okay, I'll go. I so that Tuesday I get to the subway. I'm heading into Manhattan. Now it's like an hour and a half to get into Manhattan from where my mother lived. And I had some like shoulder pain going on. And I was like, what in the world's that? Maybe I overexerted myself swimming. Okay, I said, well, it's not going to stop me. If this Bruno guy can heal other people, he can heal that too, right?
Right.
So I go to the introduction. It's held at the Edgar Cayce Center in Manhattan. It used to be an Edgar Cayce Center in Midtown. And I go in, and friendly people, picture of Bruno Groening on the wall, and it just felt comfortable and peaceful. And we're instructed to sit with our arms and legs uncrossed, hands palms upward on your thighs, like you're receiving a gift, and you just sit like that. And music's played, and we're asked to just pay attention to our body and what we feel. And what I felt was this tingling sensation all throughout my body. And I was like, oh, that's God. It's the healing stream. That's what Bruno Groening called it. He called it the Heilstrom, the healing stream. Right. And this is the power that God sends us. It sends us everywhere, and we can absorb it as much as we want for help and healing in our own lives. And this is something that humanity has forgotten over time, but it's real, it exists, and people experience help and healing. And what I experienced that evening while I was feeling it, and I recognize the feeling because sometimes, having done yoga, sometimes at the end of a yoga practice, you do yoga nidra, you lie in just a calm state, resting state. And I would sometimes feel this tingling. I didn't know it was God until I came to my introduction to the Bruno Groening teaching. And then I was like, aha, that's what this is. I know, I'm there. And during the course of that introduction, that shoulder pain that I'd had, I felt it lift off my shoulder, like really, like lifting, like someone was lifting the chip off of my shoulder.
Incredible. Can I ask you one quick question?
Sure.
So when I've done that, and I often play around with energy with my friends, people who know me, we just, we play around with it. Like I'll put my hands like this and I'll get a friend to put their hand in between mine and they can feel it. It's like, it's like a force field of energy. And then I'll ask them, what do you feel? And they say exactly that. They feel tingling, and then it starts to, travel up their arms. But so for me, I play around with it, but I'm working with it. Is there something that you need to do in order for it to get to the area in your body that you want healed, or do you just surrender?
Yeah, no, you're just open to it. So Bruno Groening, the way the teaching is passed on, it's that we don't direct the Heilstrom. So I think that what my understanding is that every individual we all have our own vibration, we all have our own energy, but we don't want to, it's not necessarily a great idea to share your energy personally. Like I've done Reiki, right? And what I didn't like about Reiki is that it was like the danger of actually absorbing something from someone that you don't want, or passing along something that you don't know that you have in you, passing along something that's not good to someone else. There's that danger, right? So with the Heilstrom, that's not the case. You're not directing anything. What one is doing when one is taking in the Heilstrom, one is acting like a radio receiver. You are switching your dial to that God frequency, right? You're tuning your dial to the frequency of God, and you're opening yourself like an antenna, and you are allowing the Heilstrom, which is more intelligent than we are. God is the ultimate in intelligence. So God knows where we need help and healing. God knows when we need what to be healed. And so, what we're encouraged to do is feel into our bodies, allow the Heilstrom to work, and and that's it. Really, you can also ask for what you want. You can ask for, please, for the healing, please for help and healing in my life, please for help and healing in X person's life, please for the complete turnaround to the good of such and such situation. We can ask for things, but then we really do have to give it away, give it up, give it to God, give it to Bruno Groening, and they will handle it. We can't, so that's what it is.
That's so, and the most amazing thing about what you just said, so for me, I'm in the spiritual community. I'm learning all these different modalities. I'm learning about crystal healing, energy healing, the power of your thoughts, what you eat, who you hang around, your environment, all of these amazing things. But what I've picked up and what I've been thinking lately is that, geez, I'm giving my power away to a crystal, or I'm giving my power away to someone else, knowing that we have the ability to heal. So from what you're telling me, rather than getting Reiki and having someone else conduct or take or give or whatever, we're essentially just using our own power within ourselves, right? So I just love that.
That's exactly it. Bruno Groening was really all about empowering, even in our modern language, you can say empowering the individual, to take our power back. We have this God-given power. We are children of God. We are like that from which we came. We each have the ability to heal ourselves. It's just that humanity has gotten off the good divine path and has tried this and tried that and put various people in positions of power, and then started listening to those people instead of listening to the divine. Bruno Groening said not to be people hearing, but to be God hearing, and that God connection is everything.
My whole life, I would always ask my parents and older people, it was like, if the pharmaceutical industry has been around for like 100 years or so, what did people do for the thousands of years before that? Right? Didn't they have an answer back then? And why is that being held from us? Why is that?
Right.
The first letters or the first words in the Bible are that God put every herb and plant needed. So why did we get steered away from that?
Yeah. Yes. Well, it's a materialistic society, the materialistic culture. It's the materialism in the world that, and it's the force that's the opposite of God that has in many ways hypnotized people into thinking that there are only these kinds of materialistic, physical, money-driven solutions, where God created, as you said, Jimmy, God created everything for humanity. The earth is created for us to be stewards and to live with it, not to exploit it, but to live with it. And within these natural systems, the natural laws come from God. And science has forgotten its purpose too. If you look at things, when people talk about science and even education, which is, when I look at education, having all the degrees that I've gotten, the purpose of education, I think, what my take on that is that it was originally to connect us to God, to discover the divine laws and apply them. That's the fundamental purpose of any kind of investigation into something, is to understand the divine laws, to understand our place here as individuals, and then working together to create more good in the world. So not take from the world, not coerce people into doing something with their bodies that they don't want to do. No, we are to work together for the good, to create more good, more health. Right. And yes, we are ultimately our own physicians. Yeah.
Yeah, I will tell you this. The thing that, see, I grew up Catholic. Okay. So when first talking to Dr. Scott and then yourself, I was apprehensive because I guess it's that old like brainwashing you go through as a child. That when somebody's trying to tell you about, let's say Bruno, that they're trying to I don't know my word here, but they're trying to like bring you into some kind of other religious thing. Like it kind of, it wasn't until I got your video that I watched the other day where it was finally, where it wasn't, you weren't bringing on another religion. Like Bruno wasn't trying to get you to believe in a different form of God or anything like that. Okay. And that was really good when I watched that and I realized that it wasn't a religious like cult, you know, or anything like that. But that's the first thing that just always, when somebody brings up God or anything to me, that old brainwashing always comes back. And I, you know, I was much like you when I didn't wait till I was 18. I was maybe 12 or 13 when I decided to get away from that religion. But it's still there, you know, that old mindset of what God and religion is, because, you know, they get you right when you're a 4-year-old, you know, with all these stories. And so I would really appreciated that video and everything.
Yeah. You're talking about the video, The Phenomenon Bruno Groening, right? The film, the documentary film about Bruno Groening.
Well, no, I'm talking about the one you sent me. It was just testimony over there. It wasn't, I didn't see any visuals. It was just speaking.
Okay. Okay. Just have to remind. Oh, you're talking about the, you'll have to remind me because it's like, I've been away and I'm kind of like, okay, what did I say?
Okay. Well, it was an introduction, basically. It wasn't the movie. It was basically testimonies from people, you know.
You're talking about, okay, so yeah, this that sounds like the CD about
that's it.
the introduction CD, right, to the teaching of Bruno Groening. Yeah. And that's, I mean, Bruno Groening was not, he didn't come to give people a new religion. He himself was raised Catholic. And he always stressed that it was not a new religion. What he wanted is for people to, though, take their religion seriously, you know, the foundations of it, not all the trappings, the outer trappings that we see so often, you know, or a lot of the interpretations that are just like not, you know, not right. That's right. No, but the foundation of every religious path is love and God and health. It's all about being in alignment with source. That's what it really is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about anything else. It's supposed to be about our connection to the source, about our natural brotherhood is the word that came to mind, that natural brotherhood and sisterhood with not only other human beings, but with all of nature. So the animals and the plants and the air and the invisible, the stuff that we don't see with our physical eyes, but we sense it. That's why we have a body. That's why we have multiple senses, because we can sense things. You know, it's not just, we are not just physical beings. Bruno Groening also said, spirit rules matter. So we are spiritual beings first, then we're having this physical experience. So we are spirit with a soul that's in our body.
Right. So can you tell the viewers watching a little bit about Bruno, those who may not have ever heard of him before?
Yeah, well, I can say a little bit about Bruno Groening. I would encourage people to go to, there's a documentary film on YouTube, The Phenomenon Bruno Groening, and that's G-R-O with an umlaut, N-I-N-G, Groening, yeah.
And I will link that in the description box below as well.
Great, yeah. And Bruno Groening so he came to prominence in 1949, so post-World War II Germany. And he was dragged into the public eye, more or less, you know, because he didn't really want to be in the public eye. But what had happened in the small town of Herford in Germany, he was invited by the Husman family to help their son, who was diagnosed with what was called muscular dystrophy. And Bruno came. He came into the house and he said to the boy, stand up. Now, this is a child who was bedridden, like couldn't stand, couldn't walk, couldn't do anything. Bruno came into the house, said to the boy, stand up, and the kid stood up. And then, he walked around. So just by speaking to the child experienced help and healing. And the parents were in awe of this, and they told people, and then people started to show up on the lawn of their house. Like thousands of people started gathering outside of the house, of the Husman house. And Bruno Groening spoke to the people from the balcony and told people, that, and helped people, and people standing there received healings. And then what started to happen was the authorities started banning Bruno Groening from speaking, to start to pull out these laws and say, oh, you're violating the healing practitioner law because you don't have a license to practice anything. You can't do it. And it's and you're going, this man is helping people. He's not charging them anything. So he never charged money. And the Bruno Groening Circle of Friends, the current organization, doesn't charge money, no membership dues. Everything is done by volunteers. People who've experienced help and healing on the spiritual path and simply want to remind humanity that there is something out here. We can experience help and healing on the spiritual path. It is real. This is not a joke. It's not a story. This is real. But Bruno Groening was persecuted by the authorities, and in the 10 years he was allowed to work, because he went home in 1959, January 1959. Thousands of people experienced help and healing on the spiritual path through learning how to sit and take in the healing stream.
If you could re-explain this, so when I sent you an email about a month or so ago, and I wrote in there a bunch of afflictions that I had, and then you wrote back that half of everything I wrote was erased and all that. If you could re-explain that, and so people understand.
Well, this is the thing, that Bruno Groening never asked about illness. He never wanted to hear about illness or what was bothering someone, because what he said is that illness comes from the evil and is evil and can only be cured by goodness. So he never wanted to talk about it. He never treated anything. So treating, our modern medical establishment diagnoses someone with something and then it treats people. Bruno Groening never did that. Never asked anyone for what was bothering them, diagnosis, because he knew. He would meet a person and he would know immediately what was going on with them. He had that ability. But he didn't treat anything. He simply helped people to experience divine connection. He often called himself the transformer, that he was like the transformer between a power plant and a lamp or a light bulb.
Like
so God is the power plant. Huh?
He's like the converter of energy, right?
Yeah, exactly. He was able to step down the power plant. If you plug a light bulb into a power plant directly, it'll blow up the light bulb. It can't handle all that power. So you need a transformer in between the power plant and the light bulb to step down the power to what the light bulb can handle. And that's what Bruno Groening, he often said he was a transformer. He would give each individual exactly the amount of Heilstrom that person could handle. And as you heal, you can then take in more of the power. And, he also said to compare yourself with a battery, that you are being charged up by this healing stream. When you're sitting and taking in, you're being charged, you're charging yourself, and you want to hold on to this good divine power for your own healing. But also, every healed person can pass along the healing, can help others through talking about God and Bruno Groening and what the divine power is and what it can do you connect people and you help people to learn how to sit and take in the divine power, and then others can too experience help and healing. And this is ultimately how God comes into this world and can turn everything around to the good.
I understand that Bruno was much more than just a conductor. You know, what you said about when he mentioned that he didn't care about your ailments, he didn't want to know the negativity because you said it's evil, right? So it's like in the Bible, bad begets bad, or like a good begets good. So it's like energy alike. So if someone comes in with an ailment and he's like, oh, poor you, you have an ailment, you're just adding to that. You know what I mean? And he's like, nah,
Right.
I'm going to cut it right here.
It
It's no longer
reaffirms
with you, right? It's all mind energy as well. So yeah, there's so much more to it than just, you know, there's a lot of belief involved as well, and transmuting. Yeah, it's just incredible.
Yeah. And it goes, so like positive affirmations, I mentioned Louise Hay earlier, and I found her work to be really helpful. But it's not just mind work. It's not just mental work. No, we're talking about the work of the heart. It really is about love. Love is God. It's the ultimate good power. And what I've come to understand about affirmations is that we're not engaging in something like hypnosis or something like that, because people think sometimes that you're like hypnotizing yourself or you're training yourself. And first of all, Bruno Groening spoke against hypnosis. He actually said that it came from the evil and should not be used. But what I understand we're doing with positive affirmations is simply reminding ourselves of where we came from. We're reminding ourselves of the good that we want, that God wants for us. God is the ultimate good source, only wants the good for creation. And the more we remind ourselves of that, the more we remind ourselves of we are like that from which we came, the more of the good we experience, the more we heal. That's what salvation actually is. Salvation, salve, Latin word, means healing. You know, the Romans I think they used to greet each other, salve. It means health.
Right. And in the Bible, in the very beginning, it says, in the beginning was the word. Right. So
That's
there you
right.
go.
Yeah. And the word, the word was with God. And the word was God, the word was with God. Yeah.
Yeah, I know for me, like one of the strongest way for affirmations is staring in the mirror and speaking to myself.
Yeah, that is very difficult to do too.
Mirror work.
I'm saying it affects you quickly. Like whatever you're saying to yourself, if you speak from the heart, it will affect you. So if you're thinking of something negative about yourself, you're going to reaffirm that as well as the positive.
Right.
And I've had it happen to me where I've talked in the mirror and literally walked down the hall and was hit by a wave of energy because I spoke negatively into the mirror. You know?
Yeah. And the thing is that Bruno Groening also taught that our thoughts are not ours, that they are sent to us, so that if you're taking in good thoughts, you are taking in thoughts from God. Anything that is a negative thought is not coming from God, it's coming from the opposite of God. So it's not coming even from ourselves. We think people talk about negative self-talk. Well, actually, it's not self-talk. That is talk coming from the opposite of God that we need to reject and replace that with a positive thought. So a positive affirmation, right? There are negative affirmations, there are positive affirmations. We replace it with positive affirmations, bring in that God force, because the God force fights the evil. And Bruno Groening also said that he was stronger than evil. Yeah. And God he also said that, Satan is mighty, but God is almighty. That's what almighty means. Almighty. There's nothing that can't be handled with a sufficient dose of God, right?
Yeah. And you just pointed something out. What's really scary is a huge amount of the population have all these negative thoughts. What are you constantly thinking on a daily basis? How are you talking to yourself? How are you talking to others? And that's manifesting back towards you. You know, what you give out, you receive. So it's like,
Right.
there's a lot of work involved in this. If you really want to take this seriously, you've got to catch yourself in your thoughts. And maybe if you're having a negative thought, replace that with, you know, your favorite picture of your child, or
Yes.
one of the best days of your life, a wedding, anniversary, whatever it is. It's like, catch yourself in your thoughts quickly and just practice that, and just keep practicing that until it clicks, because it's really scary. Because one day I was meditating, and out of that meditation, I was still in the zone, and I was really calm, I was really relaxed. And then I noticed my own thoughts, and I was like, whoa, like I was observing myself. And in that, I'm able to observe myself all the time now. And it's quite scary. Sometimes I've caught myself in awful conversations that I have in my own mind. And I'm just, wow, is this how I talk to myself? This is, yeah, there's so much work involved in doing that. So I do urge you who are watching, to pay attention to your mind and pay attention to the thoughts that are going in about yourself, and just really tweak them a little bit and practice that, because it's going to change your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bruno Groening also said that what we take in is what we give out.
Yeah.
So if we want to experience good in the world, then we need to take in the good, because when we fill ourselves with the good, then that's all we can give out. You know, it's like this, like a fountain, right? Of constantly renewing itself. You put in good clean water comes out. That's what you want. That's what we want. We want to be good and clean and always be giving out the good, always taking in the good. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about what you do with, you know, your knowledge on Bruno Groening. How do you help others with that? What is it that you do?
Well, right now what I do is sing, sing and write. I just came back from participating in a choir and orchestra weekend in the Circle of Friends. That was held in Belgrade. And the part of the Circle of Friends is just this gorgeous, gorgeous music that there are also clips of that on YouTube or on the Bruno Groening Circle of Friends website. People can find the music. That was part of what, when I came to the Circle of Friends and when we sat and did Einstellen. So this tuning in is in German, Einstellen, tuning in. We did that to the music, to one of these pieces of music. And I was going, oh my God, that's what I've been looking for my entire life. Yeah, because I love classical music, and Vivaldi's my favorite classical composer, you know, Baroque composer. I love all that music. And this music, the music that's in the Circle of Friends, is that and more, you know, like because it's not only composed from the heart and composed with the consciousness of God all the time, but it's recorded with the consciousness of God and edited with the consciousness of God. So you're constantly doing Heilstrom. Everyone who's involved in the process is doing Einstellen, bringing in the Heilstrom. And so the music is that much more powerful, because we're not trying to be like perfect in this materialistic outer world kind of classical music way, being perfect. Not about that. It really is about the heart and about the God connection. I mainly right now, what I do is I sing. I help people. I'm going to be involved in doing a whole lot of Christmas caroling this fall. This is not part of the Circle of Friends. I just love Christmas carols. part of my healing journey was to rediscover the music that I enjoyed singing most of all. And I was like, well, Christmas carols. And so there's a caroling group here. I live in Southwest Florida, and there's a Christmas caroling group that I'm going to be part of, and we're going to be doing Christmas carols. I'm like, yes.
Wow.
Who doesn't love a good Christmas carol, right? They're just the happiest.
Yeah.
I feel all childlike.
It's some of the best music composed. You know, the thing is that around the Christmas season, composers pulled out all the stops. They composed some of their best music for that season of the year. So I just love, you know, the Christmas carols. Most of the Christmas carols are older. So we've been, you know, people have been singing this music for hundreds of years, or, you know, more than hundreds of years, and it has such good power in it.
Right.
So
I used to play saxophone for the school band and like the orchestral band and all that. And I remember being 10, 11 years old playing that, being up on stage, and I couldn't help but cry. Like I
Oh.
know the whole school's watching me, and I'm just trying. It was that emotional for me, even at an early age, that music touched me in a way where I couldn't help myself. And
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had that happen even in like music I listen to. And it's here what I just am hearing now is that our music is specifically changed to a certain hertz. I'm not talking about your music, but music we hear in rock and rap and things like this to shut down what it does at a 440 hertz shuts down the right side of your brain, which is your creative part, and only gets you to your analytical, scientifical brain. And that's what they're trying to do is create chaos. And
I've heard that, and I'm not so certain about that, being a musicologist and a music historian and all that. You know, the only reason we sort of have A440 as the reference tone for tuning instruments is that if you don't have some reference tone, it's very hard for musicians who live in or are coming together to actually make music. You need to have a reference tone. Now, A440 has been around for a long time. It's not a 20th century or 21st century thing. And how we know this, music history, music theorists, and go back, you go to the organs that are around in Europe. And some of them are tuned at A440, some have A415, some of them have A somewhere else, this, that, and the other thing. And what would happen is that if you grew up in one city and you're making music in one city and you travel to another city where the organ in this particular church is tuned differently, suddenly you have to transpose, or you have to, if you have a wind instrument, put an extra block in there so that it can then play in tune with the organ. So as much as I respect people who are talking about that, I'm like, that make music historically, that doesn't seem to make, I don't think that that's true. Because I know that A is different in different cities. In the Baroque period, A was tuned differently in different cities, and sometimes you had to adjust. And you know, it's a good A at 440 is a good reference tone because you can you can make music that's not going to be too high for sopranos to sing. It's not going to be too low for basses to sing. So with A440 as a reference tone, you're all your symphonic instruments, but also your people can sing most of the music that's out there. And then, you know, and sometimes if you want to sing music tuned at A415, because a lot of people do that for Baroque music, and sometimes it makes sense, you know, because I think the music in France might have used a lower A than music in well, one part of Germany versus another part of Germany versus Italy. Like Venice had a different A than I think Rome had a different tune to use a different A as a reference. So it can make sense within those localized things, but for modern instruments to play together without everyone having to cart a whole bunch of, like, especially wind players, you know, so horns, flutes, without having to cart a whole bunch of things around to change it. So you know, that's why we have it.
Well, that's good. I understand that a little bit better. That's great. Now, I just heard that this morning. I happened to be watching something on that, and the whole thing had to go into the Rockefellers and how they changed schooling around and the whole, you know, the whole mess. So that's good.
Yeah, no, I have a book. I have a book called The Story of A. I can show it to you, you know, after this is over. I can, yeah, I can give you the reference to it. And it's a music theory history book, you know, not like scintillating reading probably for a lot of your viewers and listeners, but it does talk about how we came to use A440 as a reference tone, and it goes back several years and talks all about that.
On top of that, not just with music, have you ever heard of a Rife machine?
I have heard about it. I don't really know what it is though.
Okay, so that what it is that every disease and everything has its own frequency, and you can basically cure anything with frequency, and that's what the Rife machine does. And this is why they're making them illegal. Like if you look it up, they're trying to ban them and all this type of stuff, because people are learning how to cure themselves without going to the hospital.
Yeah.
So
Well, the great thing about the healing stream is that you can't ban God.
Exactly. That was a mic drop.
Yeah.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
and so you would ask how I help people, and the other way I help people is with my writings. So right now my focus of my writings is the book on Maria Antonia and her music, her life, and talking about women composers and how, hey, there's stuff out here, and don't we want to get together and play some of this and hear what it sounds like? And
I just wanted to know, so when using the Hailstrom, how often would you recommend doing it? And could you just show us one more time how the process of doing it, with the hands and the praying and
Well, the best way I say there is a video on, again, that's like an information lecture that can show people how to do the healing, do the healing stream. No, take in the healing stream. And the best way actually to learn how to do that would be through an introduction. So this is not a formal introduction. I'm not
right
really able to give people a formal introduction to the teaching of Bruno Groening and how to do Einstein. I can say that what you do is you sit with your arms and legs uncrossed. So nothing, my arms are not crossed, right? My legs, you'll have to trust me on this. You can't see me on camera, but trust me, I'm not crossing my legs. My feet are flat on the floor. And I'm just sitting in this natural, this open position with my hands palms upward like this, like I'm receiving a gift on my thighs. And you can close your eyes, you can sit outside and do this, you can sit inside and do this. What I love about it is like you can sit anywhere. The Hailstrom, God is sending this all the time, everywhere. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, there is Hailstrom, there is this power. And I'll close my eyes. I will often put music on and I'll pay attention to my body. And that's basically all I'm doing.
Right.
And paying attention to how I feel, the healing stream, and that's really all it is. But really, for someone to experience the healing stream and to really get a proper introduction to the teaching of Bruno Groening, I would recommend that they go to the Bruno Groening Circle of Friends website, fill out the contact form, and then what they'll receive is an email back about a community that's near where they are, where they can go, and they'll be contacted by a community leader, and they can go and get a proper introduction to the teaching of Bruno Groening.
Right. Awesome. Well, look, I will link that in the description box below as well for the viewers to find. Yeah.
Yes, great.
So April, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us on the podcast and sharing your wisdom, your knowledge. And, I wanted to say if you could possibly leave the viewers with one positive message as a takeaway before we end the podcast today.
One positive.
Not to put you on the spot.
Can I do two? Can
Sure.
I do two things? Because I have a free gift that people can get from me, which is an ebook on, it's the Music Lover's Guide to Operas Composed by Women.
Oh, beautiful.
And you can get that by going to freegiftfromthephddiva.com. So that's one good thing I give people. And the other thing,
that's awesome.
is I would like to share one of my favorite concepts from one of my favorite authors, Lewis Carroll.
Nice.
Writer of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, right? The author of that wonderful book. And also Through the Looking Glass, while Alice Found There. And I just like to remind people to remember to believe in 6 impossible things before breakfast every morning.
Believe in 6 impossible things?
Remember to believe in 6 impossible things before breakfast every morning. You know, because when you think of the good, yeah, believe in the good, right? I like to think of the impossible things as those things that people, you know, these are the things that we want for ourselves. You know, we want to believe in God. We want to believe in love. We want to believe that the good will triumph. We want to believe in ourselves and believe that I am a blessing, that I'm blessed and I'm a blessing. So I like to in the morning say at least 6 really good positive affirmations to myself, looking in the mirror, you know, doing that mirror play. Say at least 6 of them in the morning to yourself to remind yourself of who you are and why you're here. So that's what I think of as believing in 6 impossible things before breakfast.